And now, live from downtown Amarillo, Texas, this is the Amarillo Pioneer Podcast. Here's your host and the editor of the Amarillo Pioneer, Thomas Warren.
Well, thank you everyone for listening to our podcast again tonight. And once again, we are here. It's election time. May 6th is coming, sooner rather than later. And we're going to be electing our new Amarillo City Council, and 5 races up this year, and something like a record field of 6 or 7 names is running. They are running for Amarillo City Council Place 1. And we're going to be speaking with one of the candidates tonight who's running for that seat to replace Cole Stanley, who is running for mayor. He is trying to replace Ginger Nelson. I'm sorry, I can't get the words out tonight. But either way, we're excited to speak with one of our candidates, Kelsey Richardson. And before we get into all of the issues and why she's running, Kelsey, thanks for being with us. We really appreciate it. And how are you doing tonight?
Hey, thank you for having me. I am extremely blessed. I'm glad to be here.
Well, absolutely. And it's Saturday, so, the weekend is always good, and it's always a good time to go campaign, right?
All day long. I got up at 6:15 this morning, and this is being recorded at after 8 p.m. at night. So, yeah, all day.
Yeah, all day.
Fun. Yeah.
Well, for the people who are listening to this, a lot of them might not be familiar with you yet. So why don't you just take a minute to tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you into the race for city council this year?
Okay, well, thank you. I'm an Amarillo native, born and raised here. I married my high school sweetheart from Amarillo High. We have 2 beautiful kids. I am firm in my faith as a Christian, and I am, I do consider myself to be a Republican, but I'm more of a constitutionalist. I believe that we should be applying the things that were in the Constitution across the board throughout our government. We need to recognize that we are, first and foremost, a representative government, which means we need to represent the voice of the voter. And really, that just kind of brings us to why I'm doing this. I want to bring the voice back to the citizens. I want them to feel like they have a say in what happens in their everyday life. They have a say in what's put into their city, and the way that things are done here. And so I just wanted to give the voice back to the people. And I really want to bring common sense. I know people keep saying that, but boy, it's been missing for the last several years in our city council. So we're just going to bring that back, bring things back to the basics. It's like I've said several times, if we don't first secure the foundation of our city, then everything that we put on top of it will crumble. So we have to bring things back to the basics first and foremost. And that's why I'm running.
Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and talk about your priorities a little bit. If you're elected, what are the top issues that you think must be addressed by this next city council, and how are you going to tackle those issues?
So number one, I guess I should have mentioned this before. I am an analyst. That's my job full time. So what I do all day, every day is look at numbers and spreadsheets and math. And so if the math doesn't add up, I'm able to find the inconsistency and make it make sense, or restructure the spreadsheet to where things will work like they're supposed to. I don't know how else to word that to make sense to everyone. So full time, all day long, I'm looking at numbers. So when I look at our city budget, I'm not going to say that there's a ton of waste, but there's definitely things that we should be prioritizing. So as a city council person, first and foremost, what I want to do is take our budget and really strip it down. There's so many things that are added in there in 830 or 860 pages. It's hard to really navigate what's in this thing. And I think that's intentional. So what I want to do is bring things back to the basics on the budget. I want to flip it on its head. First, I want to prioritize our fire department and our police department and make sure they are completely covered, whether that is with equipment, with personnel, and make sure that whatever we're paying them is competitive wages for other areas. Second thing that I want to do is prioritize infrastructure in other places in Amarillo, not just downtown. I do see that Amarillo has an immense potential for growth, so that I really want to make sure that we have the water and the utilities to compensate for that. I don't want to have some kind of bottleneck issue where, we didn't plan for the growth that we have coming. We should be setting things in motion for that now. And I really want to clean up Amarillo. I have a meeting on Monday with the sanitation department here to kind of brainstorm what we can do to make things better. Because I want to take pride in what we have. And it's really hard to do that when everything is trashed.
Sure, I understand. Well, let's talk about you mentioned the police and fire, I believe, at least first responders, and how you're going to work with them if you're elected. You're running in a very large field for this seat. And generally, I think with the city council elections this year, it's like that. I don't remember off the top of my head if it's 22 or 23 people, but it's a really large field. And you're running against, in your particular field, there's a firefighter. There's someone who's running on the crime issue because, they were a victim of violent crime, and that's a lot of what their campaign's about. You obviously are an Amarillo citizen. You pay taxes in for those services. But what do you say to voters who might say, well, this candidate has more hands-on experience with the fire department or something like that? How do Amarillo voters know that you are prepared to be a voice who understands those issues facing the police and fire departments if you're elected?
Well, first and foremost, that just kind of comes down to having an open line of communication with people. I would kind of flip that a little bit and say, how do we know that a firefighter can be completely non-biased whenever he's looking at the budget? We need to make sure that all the city services are completely taken care of and maintained properly, and not just one or the other. Now, while I also agree, police and fire to me are paramount. I will say I did visit with, I don't want to call it a union, but a group of police officers and a group of firefighters just to kind of know what are your needs. And, they were explaining very detailed what they do to go to the city and talk to them about what their needs are. So those things I think are already set in place. It's just a matter of really hearing and applying what it is that they're saying and not just kind of nodding along and acting like you're going to do something when you're not. So, I'm not going to say that I know the ins and outs of the fire department because I don't. But I will say, like I've said already, that I will be the voice of the voter, and firemen are also voters. And I want to make sure that they know that their needs are going to be met with me being their councilwoman.
Well, I think we're going to switch gears here for just a second and talk about an issue that's on everyone's mind with this election, and that is the Civic Center. Alex Fairley filed his lawsuit last year, and we found out some things about the Civic Center project that were, let's just say, unsettling for a lot of taxpayers. But still, that becomes a conversation of, do we need to do something about the Civic Center? Is that something we don't need to do? If we are going to do something, what's that look like? Or should we just be focusing on different priorities right now? Where do you fall on the Civic Center issue? Is that something that we even need to be talking about right now? And if it is, what do you see the future of the Civic Center being, 5, 10, 25 years down the road?
So I'm going to be honest with you, that's absolutely not on the top of my priority list on things that we need to do for Amarillo. But I will say the way that the current council has gone about it is just backwards. We all have budgets for our homes. And we all know, like, let's say I went and bought a house that was built in the 60s. I loved it. It had good bones, but it needed new work done. I am not going to go in and put myself in a lot of debt just to make it look pretty or seem more functional. The fact of the matter is there's ways to space the things that people are wanting to do in the Civic Center out over time. There's ways to appropriate that money in the budget wisely. And, we don't need an overhaul completely of the Civic Center. I'm sure everybody has seen Fixer Upper. We can make it pretty. We can tear down a wall and make some of the rooms bigger if we need to. I don't think $250 million, that's over the top for me. I don't think that's even a feasible number. Because at the end of the day, the Civic Center doesn't really bring that much to the city of Amarillo. I would rather focus on parks that our kids use every day and that the seniors use every day. I'd rather focus on a senior citizen center. I would rather focus on our roads. And, there's some areas in town that still have extremely old piping for their water going into their house. Let's address those issues. Um, I just don't think the Civic Center is paramount to what we need to be focusing on.
Sure. On a somewhat related issue, with the City Hall project, that's something that, they could say wasn't tied into the Civic Center, but we all kind of know it really was. What are your feelings on the City Hall project? And I know, because I've seen on your social media that you've presented an alternative, to doing the City Hall project in that location downtown. Can you kind of walk us through what your thoughts are on the City Hall project and the alternative that you've mentioned on your Facebook page?
Yeah. So, these are things that I want to do. I have not spoken with a lawyer to know how the contract or the bonds or loans were written for the new City Hall. But these are things that I want to do. So first and foremost, we need to dig into the legality of it and make sure it's feasible. Secondly, we know we don't need a new City Hall, just like we know we don't need a new Civic Center. We can fix the City Hall we have. We can expand the room where we all meet in. What I would love to do is flip the building that they've allocated for the new City Hall and turn that into an animal shelter or a new place for the senior citizens to meet. They've borrowed and the number has completely fallen out of my brain right now, but they've borrowed a large amount of money and appropriated it to the new City Hall. The senior citizens here in Amarillo were gifted a building that needs to be completely redone over on, I think it was 6th Street. Might have been Polk. Anyways, this building has been completely gutted. It doesn't have any walls in it because there was asbestos. So they completely tore everything out of that building. And so what I would like to do is take the funds that they've allocated to build a new City Hall and turn that into a new animal shelter. I want to fully staff it and equip it. And to staff it, I want to bring students in from the Texas Tech Vet School that we just brought here to Amarillo and have those students from that school come in and do their clinicals like nurses or doctors would do at the hospital, come in and do their clinicals at our shelter, provide those animals with whatever kind of care that they're needing. And then I want to see if we can offer some kind of free spaying and neutering program, which would really alleviate all this pressure that we have on, the word fell out of my mind, on the people that are helping the rescues that are here in town. Sorry. I would like to take whatever money is left from that and give it to the Senior Citizen Center so that we can completely, they already have a building. So let's beef it up. Let's get them walls and restrooms and furniture for them to have somewhere to meet and let them feel like they're part of our community again. Now, all of that being said, that's what I would love to do, if that's even feasible legally. And if it's not, I would love to look at giving the money back and, lowering what would be the proposed tax increase to cover that loan.
Sure, I understand. Well, speaking of taxes, let's talk about that. This year, people are very, shall we say, deservedly angry about their tax increases because it seems like taxes just keep going up and up and up. And the legislature says we're going to get maybe some kind of tax relief. We'll have to wait and see on that. But from your position as a city council member or someone who's running for city council, what do you think the city council's role needs to be in reducing that tax rate? And it's hard because we have to have a certain amount of revenue to pay, police and fire and things like that we've been talking about. How do we get from point A, which is the high taxes, to point B, which is lowering them? How do you see that road looking ahead for city council?
That's a great question. Really, what it comes down to is being innovative in our thinking and cutting out unnecessary spending. It's like I've said, I've looked over the city's budget and it's over 800 pages long. And there's so many little nuggets that you'll find that are not like on the rows and columns of the budget. There's little nuggets that are planted in the middle of paragraphs. And so some of those things, it's just, you're just going, well, was this necessary to add to our debt, which will, at the end of the day, raise your tax rates. So, for example, we took out a certificate of obligation to upgrade a golf course here in Amarillo. That's not something that should come out of the taxpayer's dollar. Not everybody benefits from that. Not everybody uses that golf course. Not a lot of citizens go golfing. There's, all of the new bike trails, the murals downtown, which some of that money, that's all grants and stuff. I recognize that, but most of them are matching programs. And what I'm saying is let's take we need to get away from all of the pretty shiny things that we want and bring things back to the basics. What do we need? Let's focus on that. Let's think about things that we need first and make sure all of our bases are covered before we're adding on the unnecessary things. And so to answer your question, to bring things down, we're going to have to cut out the wants for a little bit and really allocate our money wisely.
I'm not super aware of that golf course issue. When did that happen? By just out of curiosity.
You're going to have to forgive me. I can actually send you a screenshot of that, but it was in the budget for 2021 to 2022 or 2022 to 2023, because I was trying to look over and compare the budgets from the year before to now to see what caused our jump on our overall budget. And like I said, it's just a little nugget that's just nestled right into that budget. Let's see.
Sure, I understand. I just was not aware of that. I saw that kind of piggybacking off what you said. If they did do that recently, it wouldn't necessarily be a surprise, because looking it up, it said they issued $4.1 million in certificates of obligation for a golf course in 2010. So, I mean, they've done it before. Yeah. So that is an interesting issue.
I didn't go back that far. So yeah, it was definitely between this year between 2022 and 2021, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's go ahead and I'll ask you one final policy question, and then we'll kind of get on to some of the fun stuff. I've asked several candidates this question because this is something that is important to this area, but unfortunately, I think a lot of times it doesn't really get the coverage it deserves. And that is the issue of conserving water for agricultural industries and industries like that in the Panhandle. Because, we have these heavy droughts in the summer, and then, this economy out here in the Panhandle, it lives and dies with water. So we've talked about this in the past with some candidates where we've had past city councils say, hey, to conserve water, why don't you guys, water your lawns on this day instead of this day, or, do this or that. If you're elected, how are you going to make sure that Amarillo has the water it needs to survive for years down the road?
You got some great questions. I'll give you that.
I appreciate that.
Actually, that's so funny because I talked to my father-in-law and my brother-in-law about that this afternoon. I was asking them, where do we get our water? So that's something that I'm really digging into right now. And to be honest, I'm not going to pretend like I have a perfect answer for that. I do know, and I can't remember which cities it is that have done this, where they collect rain for their gardens and things like that whenever we do have, our springtime rains that are coming in a lot. And they were telling me about all of the wells that Amarillo has, and that we used to draw water from the lake, and now it's basically dried up, so that's not an option anymore. And so, honestly, like I said, I'm not going to pretend like I know that answer, because I don't. That's something I need to look into.
Sure, absolutely. Well, we've asked this year, we've tried something new with our city council interviews. In the past, we've just asked kind of policy questions. I think we did one with Cole Stanley last year where we did about an hour of just kind of peppering him with city council questions. And we're not going to do that tonight. So because I know you're busy and all the candidates are busy and you need time to spend time with your family and to do other campaign stuff. But we are asking questions this year that are get to know you questions, because win or lose, you are a neighbor to everyone in this community and we all have to live here. And I think people, it's hard to put it into words, but I think people sometimes forget that, right? They want to burn bridges and then they don't realize that, hey, this person actually goes to church with me and, they're my neighbor and that kind of thing. So to take away the division of local politics a little bit this year, we have introduced some get to know you questions for the candidates, and maybe it'll give your neighbors, the people listening to this, your voters, a little better idea of who you are and some of the unique things that makes Kelsey Richardson, a interesting and exciting option for Amarillo. So if you are ready to go, we're just going to kind of go through some lightning round questions. Does that sound good with you?
Yeah, sounds fun. Let's go.
Okay. So the first question we've asked everybody, what was your first job?
Oh, my first job was working at the bear mill in the mall, making stuffed animals or stuffing the little bears for little kids that would come into the mall. That was
what's your favorite thing about Amarillo?
the people. The people. You can't go anywhere else and find people. I've never campaigned before, obviously, and I've walked up to so many people and just extended my hand out, and hardly anybody will not shake your hand. They'll meet your eye and they'll say, "How are you?" And they're very kind and accepting of each other. So the people of Amarillo, absolutely.
What is your favorite restaurant in Amarillo, and what's your go-to order when you go there?
Blue Sky, hands down. And I love their grilled garden salad. There's no better salad in town for sure.
You are not the first candidate who has said Blue Sky on this podcast, so that's great to know. And that's a great place to go. So I was really tempted there tonight. So
yeah.
And finally, what is something interesting about you that the people listening to this might not know? It's another one of those tough questions.
I'm trying to think what's too much information. Okay, well, something interesting about me that a lot of people might not know is I did not grow up in a wealthy home. I did not grow up in a Christian home. And so, like most people in Amarillo, I've had to overcome a lot of adversity and a lot of heartache and a lot of pain. And what I really, I don't want to say pride myself in, because I'm not a proud person, is just looking at where I came from to where I am now, and knowing the hope that gives other people, because there's so many people that I've talked to, and like I said, I'm not trying to be proud or boastful, that just say, they don't understand when they know what I've been through, how I am the way I am now. So, and I'll give all the glory of that to the Lord for sure.
Absolutely. Well, for those listening to this who may still be undecided, they're going, I have such a large field of options here for place one. I don't know who I want to vote for. Can you just take a minute, give us your elevator pitch on why you are the person who needs to go represent Amarillo citizens on the city council?
Yes, sir. I sure can. Like I said earlier, I'm an Amarillo native. The reason that I'm getting into this race is because I'm tired of our voices not being heard. I'm tired of people feeling like their vote doesn't matter. And I really want to give the voice back to the people. I think there's so many people that are running that we don't know, because people have been emboldened by someone else standing up and saying, you do have a voice and you've already let your voice be heard, and it wasn't listened to. And it just kind of gave so many people that gusto, whatever you want to call it, to put their name out there and really try to fight for their city also. And I'm no different. I would have never, ever done this if I wouldn't have felt called by the Lord. And so what I plan to do as your city councilwoman is to take care of our police and our fire department first and foremost. If we make sure that the foundation of our city is secured first, everything that we build on top of it will prosper. I want to make sure that we are first and foremost supporting our local businesses first. I do think it's important to bring in these other companies to really boost our economy, but we need to recognize all of these local entrepreneurs that are pursuing the American dream and see what we can do as a community to support them. And I also want to make sure that we're taking care of our elderly. They are who have sought us through all of the hard times, the highs and the lows, and we need to recognize them and what they've done for our community and make sure that they feel like they're still a part of it. So I would really appreciate everybody's vote. Thank you.
Absolutely. If somebody wants to support your campaign or get a yard sign or donate or knock on doors or do anything to get Kelsey Richardson elected to the city council, how can they go about doing that?
They can give me a direct phone call. I'll give you that number. It's 806-418-3695. And I'm available for anybody that if you have a question, I'll be happy to answer it. And if I don't know the answer, I will be honest with you and tell you I don't know, but I will find out. And if you also would like to, you can look at my website. It's www.votekelsey, which is spelled KELSEYIN2023.com.
Well, Kelsey Richardson, we really do appreciate you speaking with us tonight. And for everyone listening, May 6th, that's just around the corner. You still have a little bit of time, but by this point, you need to be researching the candidates and making some decisions. And so we're really excited that Kelsey could speak with us tonight. And hopefully you all got a little better chance to get to know her and decide if she is the person that you want representing you on city council. But either way, Kelsey, again, we really appreciate you being with us, and we wish you all the best on your campaign.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me.